Long ago, in the wide darkness of the galaxy, there was a human warship feared by every alien empire. Its name was whispered in secret, because wherever it went, enemy fleets burned. The warship was the pride of Earth, built with steel and fire, powered by engines no alien had ever seen before. It carried weapons strong enough to tear apart entire armadas. Aliens called it the Ghost of Destruction, and they knew that if the ship appeared in battle, no fleet would survive. But then, one day, during the height of the Great War, the ship vanished. It was last seen in the middle of an ambush, surrounded by dozens of alien cruisers, cut off from human reinforcements. Explosions lit up the void, flames swallowed the stars, and the signal from the warship went silent. Nothing was left but wreckage and drifting metal. Aliens celebrated. They said humanity's strongest blade was broken forever. Humans mourned. For years, the lost warship became a story of sorrow. Children on Earth grew up hearing about the ship that never came back. Soldiers swore vengeance, but deep down, they believed the ship was gone. The galaxy moved on, thinking the legend was finished. Yet, in the silent corners of space, whispers began to rise. Alien patrols started reporting strange shadows. A shape, moving against the stars, something that never answered their signals, something that left wreckage behind without a sound. At first, commanders ignored the reports. They called it fear, illusions of soldiers trapped too long in the dark. But the sightings grew. Small fleets sent to investigate never returned. Wreckage floated back, burned clean by weapons that should not exist anymore. Weapons that had only belonged to one ship. Fear spread quietly among the alien empires. Some laughed nervously, saying it was impossible. Others whispered that humanity's ghost ship had returned. On Earth, leaders said nothing. They pretended the reports were just rumors. But deep inside secret bunkers, old engineers and captains knew the truth. The ship was not destroyed. It had vanished, yes, but not in flames. Instead, it had gone dark, hidden in the deep void, far beyond alien eyes. Humans had pulled it back in silence, repairing, rebuilding, and upgrading it piece by piece. The ship that vanished was not gone. It was waiting for the right time to return, waiting for vengeance. The captain who once commanded it had sworn never to rest until the enemies who thought they had won felt the full weight of human rage. He sat in the dark bridge of the warship, watching stars pass, his crew silent but loyal. For years they lived like ghosts, forgotten, unseen, and patient. Now the moment was near. Sensors lit up as alien patrols drifted close, unaware of the nightmare hiding just beyond their scans. The warship stirred like a beast waking from sleep. Its engines rumbled, its weapons powered, and in the void of space, its shadow grew long and terrifying. The ship that the galaxy thought was lost forever was alive, and soon the galaxy would remember its name. In the silent edges of alien space, a lone patrol ship drifted on its route. The crew was bored, staring at cold stars and empty void. Nothing ever happened in this sector, or at least that was what they believed. But tonight something was different. The sensors picked up a faint shadow moving against the darkness. At first, the officer in charge thought it was an asteroid, but then the shape changed direction. Asteroids do not move like hunters. The crew tried to send a signal, but no reply came. Instead, the shadow grew larger, silent and steady, like a predator closing in. Before the alien crew could react, a beam of light cut across the patrol ship. The hull ripped apart in seconds. Explosions swallowed the corridors, alarms screamed, and then everything went silent. The ship was gone, erased from existence. Only drifting debris remained, burned clean as if by weapons not seen for years. The report never reached the alien High Council. The patrol was declared missing, another casualty of the empty void. But whispers started to rise among the lower soldiers. They said something was out there, something that moved without sound, something that killed without mercy. They called it the ghost of humans, the lost warship. Days later, another fleet of 3 alien frigates entered the same region. They were ordered to investigate the missing patrol. The commander laughed at the rumors, calling them childish tales, but his crew was uneasy. The moment they crossed the border of that empty sector, their lights flickered. Static filled their comms. Sensors gave false readings, and then from the corner of the screen, a shape appeared, long, sharp, and familiar. The commander froze. He had seen pictures of that design in war records, pictures of the human warship that was supposed to be destroyed long ago. The crew panicked, some praying, others screaming. They hailed the ship, begged for an answer, but only silence replied. Then the weapons fired. The frigates tried to fight back, but their shots passed through empty space, as if the warship was a phantom. One by one, their hulls cracked open, fire spilled into the void, and their screams vanished into nothing. When the wreckage was later found by scavengers, no one could explain the destruction. The burns on the metal, the precision of the attacks, the sheer speed, it all matched only one ship. Fear began to spread wider. Soldiers on alien outposts whispered at night, afraid to patrol alone. Commanders ignored the fear, but they too wondered. Could the human warship truly have returned? In secret meetings, the High Council debated. Some said it was impossible. The ship was destroyed. They saw it fall. Others said humans were cunning, always hiding, always waiting. Maybe the ship had survived, repaired in shadows, and now hunted them. But no one dared speak the thought aloud, because the idea of that warship alive was too dangerous. Across the galaxy, the legend grew. Merchant crews claimed to see a ghostly ship on the edge of stars. Smugglers swore they heard engines that sounded like thunder in the void. Survivors from broken patrols told stories of a black shape that erased fleets in silence. And in the hearts of every alien soldier, fear began to take root. They remembered the war. They remembered human rage, and now they feared it had returned. On Earth, leaders stayed quiet, but in hidden chambers, they watched every report, every rumor, with cold eyes, because they knew the truth. The ship was out there. The ship that vanished was not a myth. It was their weapon, their blade of vengeance, moving once again across the stars. The captain of the warship sat in his chair, listening to the silence after each battle. His crew did not cheer. They only nodded, eyes hard with memories of the war, hearts burning with anger. For them, every alien ship destroyed was not just victory. It was justice for Earth, justice for the colonies that burned, justice for the millions who died when the galaxy thought humanity was weak. The captain gave no speeches. His voice was calm. His orders simple: hunt, destroy, leave no trace but fear. And so the warship moved like a ghost, leaving whispers in the dark, whispers that grew louder with each wreck it left behind. Soon, the whispers would no longer be whispers. Soon, the galaxy would see the truth with their own eyes. The ship they thought was lost forever was alive, and it was hungry for vengeance. For years, the galaxy believed the human warship was gone, but the truth was far more dangerous than anyone imagined. When the ship vanished in that great ambush, it had not been destroyed. The battle had been brutal, alien cruisers striking from every side, weapons hammering its shields until the sky itself burned. The crew fought fiercely, refusing to surrender. Just when the end seemed certain, the captain made a choice that would change history. Instead of fighting to the last breath, he ordered a retreat into the deepest part of uncharted space. The ship's engines burned with impossible power, and before the aliens could track it, the warship disappeared into the void. The aliens believed the ship had been destroyed by their own fire. They declared victory, celebrated, and told the galaxy that humanity's greatest weapon was no more. But deep inside the dark regions of space, far from all maps and all scanners, the ship lay hidden. It was broken, its hull torn, its weapons cracked, its engines bleeding energy. Many of the crew were dead, and the survivors carried wounds of fire and smoke. But the captain did not allow the ship to die. He swore to his people that they would rebuild no matter how long it took. And so, in secret, they began. Years passed in silence. The crew turned into shadows of their former selves. But they worked day and night. They patched the ship with stolen parts, raided forgotten battlefields for metal, and even pulled energy cores from derelict alien craft. Slowly, piece by piece, the warship was born again. Yet this was not just repair. Every broken piece they replaced was made stronger. Every weapon they rebuilt was upgraded. Engineers whispered that the ship was no longer the same. It had become something more, a beast forged in pain, carrying the hatred of an entire species. They called the project A Vengeance Reborn. Only a few leaders on Earth knew of it. The secret was kept tight, hidden even from human allies. Officially, the ship was lost. Unofficially, it became the blade of revenge, waiting for the moment to strike. The crew themselves had changed. Living in shadows for so long, they no longer thought like ordinary soldiers. They were ghosts, hardened, silent, and patient. They spoke rarely, their eyes carrying the weight of every colony burned by alien hands, every child lost in the war. They no longer fought for medals or honor. They fought only for vengeance. The captain himself became a legend among his people. He was not a man of smiles or hope. He was a man of fire, his voice calm, his orders sharp as steel. His crew trusted him with their lives because he had led them through death and brought them back. He told them that one day they would return, not as victims but as hunters. And so they waited, drifting in the dark, testing their rebuilt weapons, training for the day the galaxy would see them again. That day finally came, when alien patrols wandered too close. The captain gave no speech. He simply nodded. The ship powered up, silent and deadly, and when the aliens came into range, they were destroyed in minutes. It was the first strike of the Vengeance reborn. After that, the crew did not hesitate. Each mission was precise, fast, and merciless. They left no survivors, no signals, only wreckage. The galaxy started to whisper again, but now those whispers carried truth. The human ship was alive, and it was hunting. On Earth, the secret leaders watched every report with grim satisfaction. They had hidden the truth for years, and now their gamble was paying off. Their enemies had grown arrogant, thinking humans were weak, thinking the strongest blade was broken. But now the blade had returned, sharper than ever. The captain knew. This was only the beginning. Small patrols were nothing. His true mission was greater. The empires that had burned human colonies, that had slaughtered civilians, that had mocked Earth's name, those empires would pay in full. He swore that he would not stop until their fleets were ash and their worlds burned with the same fire they once gave to humanity. In the silence of the bridge, his crew listened, their faces cold and determined. They were no longer survivors. They were avengers, and their ship was their vengeance. The galaxy believed the warship had been lost forever, but the secret was out now. Humanity's greatest weapon had not died. It had been waiting, and now it was ready to unleash its wrath on every enemy who once thought humans could be broken. The warship drifted through the dark like a silent predator, its hull patched with scars from battles long past, its weapons glowing faintly with power waiting to be unleashed. The crew sat in silence, watching the stars slide past, each man and woman knowing that the moment they had waited for was finally here. For years they had hidden, rebuilding in secret, training in shadows, striking only when patrols came too close. But this was different. This time, they were not going after scouts or small ships. This time, they were heading for a heavily guarded alien outpost, a base believed to be untouchable. The outpost was a hub of communication and control, protected by shields, mines, and a full defense fleet. No ship had ever dared attack it. That was why the captain chose it. The galaxy had forgotten what human courage looked like. Tonight, they would remember. The crew prepared their stations in silence, their eyes steady. The captain stood at the center of the bridge, his face carved with years of rage. He gave no long speech, no promises, only one order spoken in a low, calm voice. Strike. The warship's engines ignited, and in a single burst of speed, it entered alien territory. Sensors on the outpost screamed warnings as the shadow appeared on their screens. The alien commander at first thought it was a mistake. No human ship should be here. Humans had been quiet for years, too broken to fight, but then the shape grew clearer, sharp and terrifying, a silhouette straight from old nightmares. The commander's blood ran cold. He had studied war records. He knew that design. It was the ship the galaxy had declared dead. It was impossible. It was here. Alarms howled across the outpost. Fleets scrambled to defend. Weapons fired into the void. But the warship moved like a ghost. It slid past there, fire, shields flaring with deadly light. And then it struck. A single blast cut through the nearest cruiser, tearing it apart like paper. Another beam shredded a line of defense platforms, their explosions lighting the black sky like falling suns. The crew of the warship did not cheer. They fired calmly, methodically, like executioners. Alien ships rushed forward in desperation, but each one was erased within seconds, broken by weapons far stronger than anything they had ever faced. Panic spread across the outpost. Messages for help were sent to nearby fleets, but none arrived in time. Within minutes, the great fortress, the one place the aliens thought unbreakable, was nothing but flames and silence. The warship floated. Above the wreckage, its hull glowing with victory, its crew watching the destruction with cold eyes. The captain stood tall, his hands behind his back, his voice steady as he gave the final order. Leave nothing behind. The warship's weapons lit up again, firing one last time, reducing what was left of the outpost to drifting ash. Not a single survivor was left to tell the tale. Only the wreckage remained, floating across the stars, a graveyard of alien arrogance. But the story did not need survivors. The galaxy would know. The destruction was too large, too loud, to be hidden. Within days, whispers turned into screams. News spread faster than light. The lost human warship had returned. The first strike had been made. Panic gripped alien councils. Soldiers trembled. Leaders held desperate meetings, their voices shaking with fear. If one human ship could erase an entire outpost and its fleet, what else could it do? What if more were waiting? The legend they had mocked, the ship they believed gone, was alive, and it was hunting them again. On Earth, the hidden leaders received the silent message from the captain, mission complete. They did not celebrate. They only nodded, for they knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy had been warned. Humanity had spoken again, not with words, but with fire. And the message was clear. The ship they thought lost forever was back, and its vengeance had only just begun. The news of the destroyed outpost spread like fire across the galaxy. At first, alien leaders refused to believe the reports. They called them lies, tricks, or simple malfunctions, but soon too many voices came forward. Merchant ships claimed to see burning wreckage where the outpost once stood. Smugglers whispered of a shadow in the void that moved with the power of a storm. Survivors from distant battles swore that they saw the silhouette of a ship that should have been dead. The alien councils gathered in panic, their chambers filled with fear and confusion. One elder slammed his hand on the table, demanding proof. Another shouted that the humans had always been cunning, always hiding something. Some tried to dismiss it as rumor, but deep down they knew the truth. The lost warship had returned. Fear spread through the ranks of alien soldiers faster than orders could be given. Patrol crews whispered at night, refusing to take their ships into certain sectors. Officers reported low morale, and entire garrisons began to tremble at the thought of being the next target. The ship had not spoken, had not declared war, but its silence was louder than any threat. Every wreck it left behind was a warning, and every warning was a reminder that the humans were not finished. On Earth, the secret leaders watched quietly. They allowed the rumors to grow, allowed the fear to spread, because fear itself was a weapon. The captain of the warship knew this too. He did not rush. He let the galaxy talk, let the whispers turn into screams, and with every day that passed, the legend of his ship grew larger. The aliens had always believed humanity was weak, but now they began to imagine humans as monsters. Some empires gathered their fleets, preparing for war. Others considered offering peace, desperate to avoid the fire that consumed their neighbors. But no one truly knew what humanity wanted. Was this ship the only one? Or were there more waiting in the dark? The not knowing was worse than any truth. In the alien academies, young officers studied old battle records, searching for any clue about how to fight the human warship, but every report ended the same way: destruction. Their weapons had failed, their fleets had shattered, and their commanders had fallen in silence. Nothing they had ever built could match the fury of that ship. Fear also reached the highest courts. Kings, queens, and emperors who once mocked. Humans now demanded protection. Armies were moved, borders closed, fleets recalled from distant wars. The galaxy became a place of paranoia. Every empire watching the stars, waiting for the shadow to fall on them next. Traders cursed because their routes became dangerous. Citizens rioted, demanding answers their leaders could not give. The humans had become a ghost story made real, and the galaxy trembled at the thought of where they would strike again. Meanwhile, the warship floated silently in the void, its captain watching, waiting, and listening. He knew that fear was spreading faster than his guns could fire, and he was satisfied. His crew worked in silence, efficient and calm. They were not interested in glory or fame. They only wanted justice, and justice required patience. The captain's eyes never left the stars. He knew the aliens were plotting, building fleets, making traps, but he was not afraid. He had faced their fire before and survived. This time he was stronger, and his ship was more deadly than ever. The fear across the stars was not just a weapon, it was a promise. The promise that humanity would never bow again. And as the galaxy shook under the shadow of one ship, every alien ruler realized the terrible truth. They had thought the warship was lost forever, but it had returned, and with it, vengeance was only beginning. The alien High Council could not sit still any longer. Fear had spread across their fleets, whispers had turned into terror, and entire patrols refused to leave their stations. Something had to be done. They gathered in a grand chamber of fire and steel, leaders of empires that once mocked humanity, now shouting over one another. Some demanded immediate action, others begged for caution, but in the end they agreed on one thing: the human warship must be destroyed at any cost. They called it a hunt, the greatest hunt in galactic history. They assembled fleets larger than any seen in decades, dozens of battleships, hundreds of cruisers, thousands of fighters. Every empire contributed ships, even those who hated each other. For once they were united, not by friendship, but by fear. The galaxy's strongest armadas moved into place, creating a massive trap in the dead sectors of space. The plan was simple: lure the human warship into battle, surround it from all sides, and crush it before it could escape. Alien commanders gave bold speeches, telling their crews that victory was certain, that numbers would triumph over a single ghost. But deep inside their hearts, many of the soldiers were not convinced. They had seen the wreckage left behind. They had heard the screams of broken fleets. They knew numbers did not always mean victory when facing the humans. Still, orders were orders, and they prepared for the hunt. Meanwhile, the warship drifted silently at the edge of the trap. The captain already knew of the fleet movements. His crew had intercepted transmissions, decoded plans, and mapped every hidden minefield. The aliens thought they were clever, but they had forgotten one truth. Humans were hunters, too. The captain studied the map with cold eyes. Around him, his crew worked without fear, adjusting weapons, fine-tuning engines, preparing the ship for what was to come. They had expected this. The galaxy could not ignore them forever. The only question was whether the trap would destroy them, or whether they would turn the trap into an ambush of their own. When the day came, the alien fleets spread out, filling the void with the glow of engines and weapons. Thousands of ships waited, hiding behind asteroids and false signals, ready to strike. Silence hung heavy. The commanders waited for the ghost ship to arrive, and then, without warning, the human warship appeared. It did not creep or sneak. It came forward boldly, engines blazing, as if daring the galaxy to face it. The aliens roared into action. Thousands of weapons lit up the dark, beams and missiles crossing the stars in a storm of fire. The warship vanished into the chaos, shields glowing as explosions thundered around it. For a moment, the aliens thought they had won. But then the first wave of their ships erupted into flames. The warship had slipped past their lines, moving with impossible speed, striking from angles no one expected. Its weapons cut through battleships in seconds. Its engines carried it through the storm like a phantom. Alien commanders screamed orders, but their fleets were collapsing faster than they could react. Fighters were torn apart, cruisers shredded, and mines exploded against their own allies as the warship twisted the battlefield into confusion. It was not the humans who were trapped. It was the galaxy's greatest fleet. On the warship's bridge, the crew worked with precision. No one shouted. No one panicked. They moved as one, every strike calculated, every attack perfect. The captain gave his orders calmly, his voice steady even as entire fleets fell before him. He had expected this hunt, and now he was turning it into slaughter. Hours passed, and the trap became a graveyard. Wreckage filled the void, fire burned across the stars, and the proud fleets that once believed they were unstoppable scattered like frightened animals. Some ships fled, others surrendered, but most were reduced to drifting ash. In the end, the great hunt had failed. The alien council's pride was shattered, their fleets broken, their soldiers terrified beyond reason. The warship floated alone. In the silence, its hull still burning with power, its weapons still glowing. The captain looked out at the wreckage, his face unreadable. He had not hunted for glory. He had hunted for vengeance. And vengeance had been served. Across the galaxy, the news spread faster than ever. The largest fleet in history had been destroyed by one human warship. Fear, which had already been growing, now turned into full terror. The galaxy realized the truth too late. They had not been hunters. They had been prey. And the human warship, the ship they thought lost forever, had only just begun its hunt. The void of space had never known such fire. When the alien council sent their greatest armada to destroy the human warship, they believed the battle would be quick, but what followed was chaos written across the stars. The warship appeared like a shadow at first. Then, with engines burning, it cut straight into the heart of the alien fleet. Thousands of ships opened fire, filling the darkness with blazing light. Beams, torpedoes, and plasma storms streaked across the void until the stars themselves seemed to vanish behind the fury. But the warship was no ordinary vessel. It moved like a ghost, shields flaring against the attacks, then sliding through the storm with impossible grace. Its weapons answered in silence and precision. each shot tearing through an enemy vessel as if their armor was paper. An alien battleship tried to flank it, but the warship's cannons split it in half with one devastating blast. Squadrons of fighters swarmed, trying to overwhelm it, but the warship unleashed a storm of drones, machines armed with human rage, and the fighters fell one by one, silent explosions marking their graves. The void burned brighter than any sun, wreckage floating, screams fading into static. Still the aliens pressed on, commanders shouting orders, desperate to trap the ghost. They tried to surround it, but the warship slipped through gaps like smoke, striking where they were weakest, retreating before their fire could land. Every tactic they tried failed. Every plan turned against them. It was not a battle. It was a massacre. On the bridge of the warship, the crew worked in deadly calm. Their eyes did not blink at the destruction outside. Their hands moved with practiced skill, striking their enemies with precision born from years of waiting. The captain stood in silence, his face lit by the fire of the void, his orders sharp and cold. He had no need to inspire his crew. They already knew their purpose. Each alien ship destroyed was one more step toward vengeance. Hours passed, and still the fire burned. Alien fleets that had once stretched across systems were torn apart, their survivors scattering into the dark. But the warship did not let them escape so easily. It hunted them down, cutting off retreat, erasing them until nothing remained but drifting metal and silence. Across the galaxy, those watching from afar trembled. They received fragments of desperate transmissions, screams. For help, static filled with terror, the last words of commanders who once believed themselves untouchable. The signals ended in fire, leaving only silence. And in that silence, fear grew stronger than any weapon. The galaxy now understood that this was not just a ship. It was vengeance given form. Entire fleets could not stop it. Entire councils could not plan against it. The fire in the void was a reminder of what humans could do when pushed too far. Even the stars seemed smaller compared to the rage burning inside that warship. As the last alien cruiser exploded, its wreckage scattering across the void, the warship drifted alone among the flames. The crew said nothing. They did not celebrate. They did not smile. They only prepared for the next strike, their hearts steady, their mission clear. The captain looked out at the ruins of the greatest fleet the galaxy had ever built and spoke only one word: forward. The engines roared, and the warship vanished once more into the darkness, leaving behind only fire in the void and a galaxy drowning in fear. The fire of the great battle still burned in the void, wreckage drifting like broken bones of an empire. But aboard the human warship there was no celebration. The crew sat in silence at their stations, eyes hard, faces carved by years of loss. They had destroyed the largest fleet the galaxy had ever seen, yet none of them smiled because they all knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning. On the bridge, the captain stood before the viewing screen, his hands clasped behind his back, his eyes locked on the endless stars. His voice was calm, but there was weight in every word as he finally spoke to his crew. He reminded them of the colonies that had been burned, of the families slaughtered when the aliens had believed humans were weak. He told them of Earth's cries, of the silence that had fallen when no one came to help, of the shame the galaxy tried to bury by saying humans were finished. His words were not loud, but they carried through the ship like thunder. He said they had not survived in the dark just to fight small battles. Their purpose was greater. Their mission was vengeance. And vengeance meant more than destroying fleets. It meant striking at the very heart of the empires that had once laughed as humans bled. His vow was simple. He would not rest until the alien homeworlds themselves felt the fire that humanity had endured. He swore that the stars above their capitals would burn red, and their rulers would learn the taste of fear the same way humans once did. The crew listened in silence, their faces pale in the glow of the ruined battlefield, but one by one they nodded. They did not need speeches of hope or promises of safety. They had given up those dreams long ago. What they wanted was justice, and the captain had given them a vow that justice would come. In that moment, the warship no longer felt like a machine. It felt alive, a beast forged of steel and anger, carrying the souls of its crew like a blade carries fire. Every man and woman aboard knew they were part of something larger than themselves, something that could not be stopped. The galaxy thought the warship was lost forever, but now it carried a promise written in blood. Word of the vow spread through whispers. Captured signals from the battle were decoded by smugglers and merchants. Soon the story reached alien soldiers, who trembled in their bunkers. They said the human captain had sworn to burn their homeworlds, and none doubted it. Fear grew deeper, sharper, heavier. Leaders argued in desperation. Some wanted peace. Others wanted to build even bigger fleets. But deep down, they all understood. No matter how many ships they built, no matter how many traps they laid, the warship would come, and it would not stop until vengeance was complete. The captain sat once more in his command chair, his eyes unblinking, his hands resting on steel. Around him, his crew worked with renewed focus. They had been hunters before, but now they were executioners. Every star system they passed, every enemy they encountered, they destroyed with precision and silence, leaving only fear behind. For them, the vow was more than words. It was a fire in their hearts, burning away hesitation, leaving only cold purpose. The galaxy had awakened a storm when it thought humans were weak. Now that storm had a name, a face, and a promise that would shake empires to their knees. And in the endless darkness of space, the human captain whispered his vow once more. Not to his crew, not to the galaxy, but to the memory of every human who had fallen in the war. He promised them that their deaths would not be forgotten, their pain would not be wasted, and their enemies would never know peace again. The engines roared, and the warship vanished into the stars, carrying its captain's vow like a shadow that could not be escaped. The galaxy was trembling as the human warship cut across the void, silent and unstoppable, and every world it passed felt the shadow of its wrath. The vow of the captain had already spread like wildfire, whispered in markets, in bunkers, in war. Councils where alien leaders screamed at each other in fear. They knew the humans were coming for the heart of their empire, but none could agree how to stop them. Some said to build bigger fleets, some said to hide behind planetary shields, and some even suggested abandoning their homeworlds altogether. But deep down, they all knew the truth. There was no place to hide, because the warship always found its prey. On the bridge, the crew watched in silence as the map displayed their final target, the core of the alien empire, the homeworld that had once ordered the destruction of Earth's colonies. For years, that planet had glowed like a jewel of power, a place where emperors laughed while others bled, but now it glowed on the map like prey marked for death. The captain's voice was steady as he gave the order. There would be no mercy, no retreat, no negotiation. Their mission was vengeance, and vengeance meant the fall of the empire. The engines roared, pushing the ship faster than light, while inside, the crew prepared for the battle that would decide everything. Weapons were armed, systems checked, shields primed. No one spoke of fear, though every one of them felt it. They had faced fleets, they had faced endless battles, but this was different. This was the core of their enemy, defended by an armada unlike any they had ever seen. Yet not a single hand hesitated, because they all remembered the vow, and they all remembered the dead. The homeworld's defenses were already waiting when the warship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Thousands of ships filled the black sky, massive battle stations glowing with weapons that could destroy moons, and shields that could hold back entire fleets. The planet itself was wrapped in energy barriers like layers of fire, each one strong enough to withstand bombardment for years. The Empire had poured everything into protecting its heart, believing no enemy could ever reach this far. But the moment the human warship appeared, silence fell across the battlefield. For one heartbeat, no one moved, as if even the stars held their breath. Then the captain gave the order, and the silence shattered. The warship struck first, its cannons unleashing storms of light that ripped through the enemy lines. Alien ships burned and fell in waves, their formations breaking under the sheer precision of human firepower. Yet the Empire had prepared too long to be crushed easily. Their fleets swarmed like endless tides, their weapons flashing in the void, pounding against the human ships' shields. The battlefield became a storm of destruction, explosions blooming across the dark like dying suns. Inside the warship, alarms screamed, sparks flew from panels, and steel groaned under the assault. But the crew held firm. They had survived worse. They would not break now. Every strike they returned carried the weight of vengeance. Every enemy ship destroyed was one more step toward justice. The enemy tried to surround them, tried to cage them in fire, but the human ship moved with impossible precision, weaving through the chaos, cutting apart enemy formations with ruthless efficiency. Hours passed like moments, and still the war raged. The alien commanders screamed orders, deploying weapons never before seen, massive beams that tore holes in space itself, missiles that could split asteroids in half. But the warship endured. Its armor cracked, its shields flickered, but its guns never stopped firing. Then came the turning point. The captain ordered the ship forward, straight toward the largest alien station guarding the planet. The crew did not question him. They poured every ounce of power into the engines, surging through fire and wreckage, shields blazing as the enemy closed in. The alien station opened fire, beams of unimaginable energy lancing through the void, but the human ship plunged through, the storm, its cannons roaring, tearing through the enemy defenses piece by piece. The station exploded in a burst of white fire, fragments scattering across the battlefield, and in that instant the Empire's defenses cracked. Fear spread through the alien fleet. Their strongest weapon was gone, and the human ship still stood. The captain did not pause. He gave the order to press forward, to strike at the planet itself. The warship broke through the last line of ships, battered but unbroken, its guns blazing as it descended toward the enemy's world. The sight of it filled the skies of the capital with terror. Billions looked up and saw the black shape cutting through their atmosphere, its engines roaring like thunder, its weapons glowing like the wrath of gods. The Empire had once laughed at humanity. Now they trembled under its shadow. On the bridge, the captain stood tall, his face lit by the glow of fire, and he spoke not to his crew, but to the galaxy itself. He declared that this was vengeance, that this was justice, and that no empire built on blood could last. His words echoed through the comms, reaching even the enemy who listened in silence. Then he gave the final order, and the warship unleashed its fury on the homeworld. The planet shook as fire rained from the skies, shields cracking, defenses shattering. Cities burned, towers fell, and the Empire's heart began to die. But the captain's eyes never wavered. He did not see a world. He saw the faces of those who had been lost, the cries of those who had begged for mercy and received none. And he knew this was the only answer. The vow was being fulfilled, and nothing could stop it. The final invasion had begun, and the galaxy would never forget the day humanity returned with vengeance carved into steel. The homeworld burned beneath the black shadow of the human warship, its skies filled with falling fire, its seas boiling, its towers collapsing like sand. And for the first time in centuries, the Empire knew fear. True fear, the kind that grips the heart and does not let go. And yet through all the destruction, The human captain stood silent at the bridge, his eyes locked on the planet, his face carved with the weight of vengeance. Because this was not just victory. This was the end of an age. The final answer to centuries of arrogance and cruelty. The crew around him worked without pause, weapons firing, shields holding, systems screaming under the strain, and still they pressed forward, each one driven by the vow they had carried through countless battles, the vow that they would never stop until justice was done, until the galaxy knew that humanity could not be broken. The Empire's leaders tried to flee, their ships launching from hidden bunkers, their comms filled with desperate cries for mercy, but the warship intercepted them one by one, its guns speaking the only language the Empire had ever understood, until silence fell again across the void. And then, when the last defense crumbled and the planet's shields failed, the captain gave a single order that no one expected. He told the crew to cease fire. At first they hesitated, their fingers still poised on weapons, their hearts still burning with rage. But his voice carried a weight they could not deny. And so the warship fell quiet, hovering above the broken planet like a dark god deciding the fate of the world. The captain stood at the center of the bridge and opened the comms, not just to the planet, not just to the fleeing ships, but to every listening ear across the galaxy. His voice carried on every frequency, across every channel, reaching allies, enemies, traitors, soldiers, leaders, and even the smallest child who looked at the stars with wonder. He spoke of vengeance, yes, but more than that, he spoke of memory. He told the galaxy of what had been done to humanity, of how the Empire had hunted, enslaved, burned, and laughed at Earth's weakness, and how humanity had endured, building, strength in silence, waiting for the day when justice would come. He told them that this ship was not a weapon of conquest, not a banner of empire, but a reminder that no species, no power, no throne stood forever when built on cruelty. He said that this warship carried the last message of Earth's wrath. And that message was simple. Never again. Never again would humanity be silent. Never again would their dead be forgotten. Never again would their enemies believe them weak. As his words spread, some listened in awe, some in fear, and some in shame, but none could turn away because the voice of vengeance had become the voice of truth, and it burned into every heart. And then the captain did something even more shocking. He announced that the warship would not conquer the Empire's ruins, would not take the throne, would not demand tribute. Instead, the warship would vanish once more into the void, carrying its vow with it, carrying its fire where it was needed, watching, always watching. The Empire would fall by itself, its people left to rebuild or collapse, but the shadow of the warship would remain, a story passed from world to world, a warning that none would forget. The crew stood in silence as the captain ended his message, and then without another word, the engines roared to life. The warship rose higher, leaving the shattered planet behind, leaving smoke and ruin and whispers in its wake. The galaxy watched as it vanished into the stars once again, disappearing into the endless dark from which it had first returned, and no one knew where it would strike next, only that it would. The vow had been fulfilled, but it had also become eternal, a living force carried by steel and fire, a promise that humanity would never again be prey. Across the galaxy, children would grow up hearing the story of the ship that was lost and returned for vengeance, and rulers would look at the stars with unease, wondering if tonight would be the night they saw its shadow on their skies. And somewhere far beyond the reach of any empire, the captain stood alone on the bridge, looking at the endless stars, his hand resting on the steel wall as if feeling the heartbeat of the ship itself. He whispered softly, a voice only the stars could hear, a voice for the dead, for those who had been lost, promising that they were remembered, that their pain had not been in vain. The vow had begun as vengeance, but now it had become something greater. It had become the last message of humanity to the galaxy, a message written in fire, a message that would never fade, a message that echoed even in silence. And with that, the warship sailed deeper into the void, a ghost of steel and vengeance, carrying its eternal promise into the unknown.